Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode. Let me tell you a little bit about Agency Habitat. Agency Habitat is your one-stop shop for emerging brands. From packaging design to Shopify website development, from organic social content to connected TV spots, from brand activations to influencer programs, they offer everything your brand needs to succeed, all under one roof. Contact them at www.agencyhabitat.com. Looking to scale or launch your supplement or skincare brand? Eagle Labs Incorporated, based in Florida, offers full-service NSF-certified contract manufacturing of capsules, tablets, powders, liquids, gummies, and lotions. All of their manufacturing takes place in the USA. From R&D and formulation to packaging and fulfillment, Eagle Labs provides scalable, high-quality production that meets FDA and NSF standards. To learn more, contact Michael Law, Chief Commercial Officer at Eagle Labs at michael.law@eaglelabsinc.com, EAGLELABSINC, Michael Law, eaglelabs.com, or text him at 203-242-6417. Today's Road to Retail episode is powered by Market Performance Group, MPG, a leading omnichannel commerce agency delivering integrated commercial solutions that accelerate profitable growth. MPG's new growth initiative helps brands of any size win in every channel, whether launching DTC, scaling on Amazon, or entering brick and mortar. Its team, veterans from top retailers, CPGs, and digital platforms, connects brands with consumers across the full funnel, delivering right-size strategies, strategic go-to-market plans, advanced analytics, and deep retailer relationships for exceptional business results. Check them out at marketperformancegroup.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of The Road to Retail. Tracy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, Bruce. Great to be here live in Fort Worth, Texas with you today.
Oh, that's great. And before we get into our episode with our guest, I just want to make sure that we recognize and thank our friends at Agency Habitat and Lowtown Studios for helping us pull off bringing The Road to Retail on the road here to Dallas/Fort Worth/Texas. We don't want to offend anyone. We're covering the whole state here. So Tracy, tell us who we have here today.
Absolutely. So I want to welcome to the studio Trey Bowles. So Trey is with 1845 Venture Studios, and he is the co-founder and managing partner. Welcome, Trey. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's always a joy to come over here to Fort Worth.
Awesome. Well, why don't we kick off our episode here and tell us just a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong entrepreneur and turned investor. Started building companies when I was in college. After the third or fourth company, I decided I might be an entrepreneur and spent the next 10 or 15 years kind of traveling around the country, living in a bunch of different cities. Settled back here in DFW. I felt like out of all the cities I'd lived in, from New York to San Francisco to LA to DC, that Dallas-Fort Worth had more opportunity for growth than any other place I'd ever been. So I came back here, sold a couple companies, and spent the next 10 years really focusing on building out our ecosystem to support entrepreneurs and innovators, and built an organization called the DEC, the Dallas Entrepreneur Center, where we've helped about 10,000 companies start, build, and grow.
Wow.
And then got into investing, and just recently in July launched 1845 Venture Studio.
Wow, what a great story.
So Trey, we know that your investing background is diverse, but our audience is emerging small challenger brands. So I know that you're going to keep it kind of focused to things that make sense there. As we level set the discussion, can you just kind of give a quick overview of the services your firm provides and how you guys roll?
Absolutely. At 1845, we co-found companies with founders. And so that means we're coming in and we're contributing at least 50% of the value. But what we're doing is we're helping entrepreneurs in the way that we see that they need the most help possible. I believe entrepreneurs don't fail because they have bad ideas or because they're not solving real problems. They fail because for the first time, they're doing 25 things they've never done before. In addition to focusing on the problem they're trying to solve or the brand they're trying to build. And so we come in and help raise money. We come in and help set up back-end systems to develop the product and manufacturing. And we do finance and marketing, all those things we kind of come in and help them do. We don't do it separate, we do it with them so we can teach and help them learn as they grow. But what we see is that allows them to get to market much more quickly. It allows them to grow more quickly. It allows them to find the right people to build and grow around them. And then one of the things that I've enjoyed building the last 20 years is mentor networks, advisor networks. So we have mentors and advisors all over the world that are subject matter experts in the different areas that we're focused in. We bring them in and engage them in the process as well to help create the fastest opportunity for success.
Wow. So needed for entrepreneurs. Like you said, they're not used to doing a lot of different things. So
I wish I would have had that when I got started.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too. So let's just talk about, most of, like I said, Bruce said that most of our audience is small emerging brands. So talk to us a little bit about a pre-flight checklist that a brand should go through before they even start the process of trying to bring on an investor or financial help. So what do they need to start thinking about early on, really?
So that's a great question. I think for me, one of the things that I'm most disappointed when I talk to entrepreneurs about is that they haven't done real customer discovery. They haven't gone out to really figure out, is there a problem? Is there an opportunity? Is there a need for the brand or product you want to bring to market? And you got to go out and you got to talk to people about that. You've got to figure out, is there an interest in that brand or a need that needs to be solved? Is your solution going to do that? And will people pay for it? And those are three things that don't cost any money to do. So when people tell you, well, I want to start this company, but I don't have enough money to get my first prototype made, or I don't have the ability to manufacture the type of product that I want to manufacture. My argument is, have you gone out and proven that this isn't just a cool idea, it's actually a business? And so that's the first part of the checklist that you need to have. I think second of all is you need to make sure you have the right people on your team. That doesn't mean that you need to have people employed, that you have to be able to pay them, but have you gone out and found experts in your area that can come in and help you in the way you think about building the product or brand you want to build? Do you have people that can help you not make the mistakes that you make? I think oftentimes mentors do a great job of removing obstacles that stand in your way, things that will prevent you from getting to launch. And there are lots of people out there that are willing to come in and help and support you, especially in Texas. We've seen that a ton over the last 20 or so years that I've been involved here in helping build companies, is that there's no better place in the country to get people who will help you, that'll spend time with you, that'll give to you what someone gave to them, which is a little bit of advice and experience, and then they want to see you win. They want to see you grow and succeed. And we've got unbelievable customers here. We've got large corporations. We've got amazing manufacturing scenarios. We've got a stock exchange that's about to launch. I mean, there's not a better place in the country to build a business of any type than Texas right now.
That's awesome. One of the things you said about, doing some research and getting some consumer feedback. We talk to entrepreneurs and sometimes they say, well, I tested this with my family or I do it at the farmer's market and they love it. Well, that's great. And we have a bumper sticker that says, my baby's beautiful because I birthed it, right? So it's great to hear you say, get other feedback other than your friends and family or the people that you talk to at the farmer's market, because you have 5 or 10 minutes to talk to them about your product. If the product's on the shelf or D2C, you don't have that ability. So
absolutely,
that's great to hear. So Bruce?
Well, I think, Trey, if the investing doesn't work out, there's a spot for you at the Texas Chamber of Commerce. That was quite the advertisement you just did there. So
Love it.
Tell the folks about the different types of financing that are available to a startup or emerging brand, and maybe a quick pro and con. You hear all the stories of angel or bootstrap or friends and family. You live it. What's your...
Right. So I think bootstrapping is the easiest because it's coming out of your own pocket. You're kind of going at your own speed organically. When you're ready to do something and spend a little bit of money, you can test there. It also puts a lot of weight on you to be successful. There's no motivator like having to put food on the table at the end of the month. And so bootstrapping is a great way to get started. Second would be friends, what we call friends, family, and fools. People that you can convince to give you money at an early stage. That's sort of just getting you started. It's more people who are investing because they care about you than whether or not they have any idea about the product or service that you're launching. Next would be angel investing. So friends and family would be anywhere from 50 to maybe 100, couple 100,000. Angels would be angel investors or accredited investors, individuals who are making their own choice in the things that they want to invest in. And so that's the next stage, and that's maybe 250 to $1 million that you could put together through that. And then you look at either the debt route, which is, bank loan, credit limit, different types of loans that you can get, or the equity-based focus, which is when we hear the term venture capital, or institutional investors. They come in at that point. My argument to anybody is don't take any money at all if you don't have to. Unfortunately, that's not the way it works for most of us in building a brand, especially if you want to have that brand scale. You want to have the money to really put behind marketing and growth and distribution and all the things that come alongside that. So it's often a reality that you're going to have to go out and get venture funding to grow something like that. But in actuality, I think it's a mixture of a couple of those different avenues that you'll have to go about in order to get the right amount of money and the right combination to build, grow, and succeed in your brand launch.
Yeah, we had a banker on, and she said similar. She said, "Don't take any money unless you absolutely have to, because you'll make a mistake early on and give away too much equity for too little money." She said it's the most expensive money you'll ever have in your life. And you'll be like, why did we do that? And the answer could be, we didn't think of anything else, or we had no choice, or we were in a time jam.
Or you didn't surround yourself with the right people who could advise you. Mm-hmm. How much money do you give an advisor? How much equity do you give an advisor? How much money do you give your first investor? Because the reality is when you go the debt route, and you talk about a banker earlier, bankers aren't going to give you a loan until you get to a certain level of revenue, right? So when you're thinking about that picture of when do I take money from which group at what time, some of those things you can control, but some of those can't. A banker's not going to give you a loan at an early stage. You got to figure out how to get there. And then once you get to a place where you're starting to raise capital to grow, that's when I would be creative in looking at how do I leverage a line of credit? How do I create a loan that I can pay back over time that's not giving up equity, that allows me to go buy more inventory, that allows me to just kind of set up my long-term goals there. So it's usually a mixture of those different scenarios in funding that I would encourage somebody to take or think about as they're growing.
Yeah, the old joke is banks don't lend money to people who don't need it.
Right.
Or they will lend money to people who
that
won't need it, but
right.
They won't lend to those who do. Oh, you're too risky.
Right.
I thought you were a bank. I am.
They all have their levels of,
Sure.
approvals.
Sure. So let's talk about what does an investor look for when they're looking at a brand to invest in? Is it product differentiation? Is it IP? Is it the size of the business? So as an investor, what do you look for?
So it depends on what stage of investor I am. If I'm super early stage, like angel level, I look for one thing. At a Series A or Series B, I'm looking at different. But overall, I would say most investors are looking at the team, right? They want to believe in that the people who are starting this company have a conviction, a purpose behind why they're starting the company, that they won't give up. Because I think most people don't realize how hard it is to start a business. And then once you actually start it and you start running into those roadblocks or obstacles or, the inflection points that happen, good and bad, it's when people give up. And so you first have to believe in the team, which means the team needs to have some sort of expertise in the area that they're building, or somebody on the team. Again, I think about team. I don't think about just the people who are employed by you. I think that also includes your advisors, your mentors, your board, and stuff like that. But surrounding yourself with the right people is the first and most important thing that we look at, and we look at very closely. And a component of that is the coachability side. If you have a founder that is not willing to take suggestions or learn. I've probably built 35 companies, and I would take advice from anybody that was willing to give it to me. Because you know what? There's always a chance that there's something I don't know or I haven't seen, a mistake I haven't made, even though I've made most of them at this point, that's really valuable. Second, we're really looking at a market. Like, is there a market out there for this brand that you're trying to launch, right?
Right.
We talked about, tequilas earlier. Well, there's lots of tequilas out there, and we look at a couple of the big ones, that had the big exits,
right?
Whether it's Casamigos or Lalo, most recently selling to Tito's. Like, everybody thinks I got to get in the tequila game. Well, if you go to the liquor store, there's a lot of tequilas up there, and so what is unique and special about your product or brand? And a lot of times that comes down to story, which ties back to team. What is the story about your brand that's unique? Lalo had, the grandson of Don Julio, right? So that was super important to them as they built and grew. And it was this great story. So the story is the second piece. The market, is there indeed a market? Can you show me that there's a market out there? Third would be traction, like what have you accomplished to this point? Because as I talk about those different stages of funding, whether it's angel or Series A or Series B, the level of traction or accomplishment you need to have at each of those levels varies, right? So a Series B, you're gonna have to have a lot more revenue, a lot more traction, a lot more distribution. Whereas at an early stage with an angel, you're trying to convince him or her that I've got the great idea, I've got the great team, we've made as much traction as we can without really any money,
right?
Which ties back to the customer discovery process and proving that there indeed is a market. I think the last thing I worry about is, does every part of your idea figure it out? Because the reality is, as you grow, as you learn, things are going to change. That could be the packaging, right? That could be the different flavors that you have. It could be a lot of different components. That stuff's going to change. But if the team is solid, the market's there, right? The competitive, you talked about a competitive advantage. You want to be different than who's currently out there. That's a part of the story. And then a word we often use in investing is called a defensible moat. So, okay, maybe you are different than this brand, and this brand, but how do you prevent somebody else from coming on and competing in the same way you are? Exceptionally important. And all those things, again, you build the right team around you. They let you know what questions you need to be able to answer, so you can think through what your differentiation is, right? How are you special and unique, and how is it going to be hard for other people to compete with you? Which is something that as an investor, we ask all the time. We don't necessarily always know the answers for every part of your business, but we know the questions to ask to determine if you know the answers to every part of your business.
One of the things you said that I liked is that you said you have it all figured out, or because we talk to a lot of brands who are building the plane as it's going into the air.
Yes, or as it's coming down.
Or coming
but yes,
down, exactly.
You are building the plane while you are flying.
Yeah.
And that's an important piece. We don't expect entrepreneurs to have everything figured out.
Right.
We want them to be honest with us when they don't know something, because the reality is you're going through the due diligence process to determine whether or not you want to fund somebody. It's going to come out that you don't know certain things, or that maybe you overstretched in one of your answers, or one of the strategic partnerships you have in place, or the number of customers you have. And those are the things we really double click on and get really deep in the end. And we're going to want to, you talk about IP. IP is super important, but so is contracts you have versus LOIs versus pilots versus all these different elements. LOIs are not legally binding, so they're not super impressive in the end, but it's at that point at an early stage, that's the only traction you can have. You've got to give value to that. And so I think that piece is important to think about, being honest with the people that you want to have invest, even though you are ultimately what I would consider absurdly positive about an opportunity. Unless you're honest, then one, it's going to come back and bite you. But two, if you've surrounded yourself with a team of people who are subject matter experts, your board, your advisors, people like that, they're there to help you. Right. They're there so you can go to them and say, I don't know the answer to this. I think I messed up here. Those are important conversations to have. Too many times have I gotten an email 30 days before we're out of cash, when they knew 6 months ago there might have been a problem. Right. And at 30 days, I can't be helpful. At 6 months, we can think about some problems and really try to help find a solution.
So what you're saying, and I like this, is you got to be fully transparent, right? Don't hide anything. No one likes surprises, right? We had an episode about that. But also, the importance of the team and building people, around you, I think is just great for our audience to hear. So great. So Bruce?
Yeah. And bad news does not get better with time. No.
Exactly.
It doesn't just go away now.
Yeah.
Right.
Trey, you touched on this real fast, but I want to circle back. So you mentioned IP, so that could be part of the moat you're discussing. Do you guys like to see ironclad IP, like, hey, our brand name's copyrighted, we own our domain name, if we have a unique formula or a unique something, we have a patent or a patent's pending? Do you like that level, or is that, Bruce, it's important, but it's one of like 50 things that are in the air?
I think it depends on the product that you're talking about. I think obviously it's important that you own the IP of what you're building, and that you have clear ownership rights to that, so somebody can't come back later and say, actually, I helped you develop that formula, therefore I own 50% of it, right? We got to have contracts in place that say that. Domains are important, trademarks are important, and not as much that they have to be there, but just, we were looking at a company today, and we looked online, and somebody had the website and somebody else had a potential trademark, and so we just said, look, we need to have this discussion. Is this an issue? Is it not an issue? What do we have the ability to change or look other places? I think it's just, have you thought through these things, and what is your solution to that problem? And it may be, I didn't know that company already existed. I've done a bunch of research and I didn't find, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Let's pivot. Like that's an easy thing. But when somebody's able to come back to you and said, well, I actually developed that formula with you, therefore I own it. You don't have any contractual language that shows that you have the ownership of that, or what percentage, then we will not move forward, because it's too much of a liability in the long run.
That makes sense.
Yeah, too much risk. So, Trey, when you first meet a brand, whether it's a phone call, a warm introduction, a deck that catches your eyes, because I'm sure you hardly see any decks, do you guys prefer an initial meeting that's just kind of getting to know you, to make sure that you would want to sit and talk to me for hours on end for the next 3 to 5 years, or are you guys send me the model? Because we've had investors that do both. If I have a bad first vibe, I'm out, and others have I've heard a million stories, send me the model.
Sure. So the way I do it is I usually tell, because I have people every day, hey, can I take you to coffee? Hey, can we meet? What are you doing this afternoon? Can we get together? It's at like 10 a.m. in the morning. And, entrepreneurs are eager, and I appreciate about them. And I think that it's important to take your shots whenever you can. For me, what I will say to an entrepreneur is, Thank you for reaching out. I always want the entrepreneur to recognize how much I respect him or her.
That's
Because you are taking your baby and putting it out in front of the world, and having done this several times myself, it's the scariest thing you can ever imagine. It takes unimaginable courage, perseverance, a little bit of crazy to think that you can build and do this. And so that's important. But what I say to them is, look, I would be happy to have a meeting with you. If you could please send me something on your company. That way, when we do talk, I can be prepared. Because if I sit down and have coffee with you, you're going to tell me your idea, and whatever's going on in my head at that moment, at that time, is the response you're going to get. And that could be, you're not getting 100% of the value. If you send me your deck, or if you send me one pager and information on what you're trying to accomplish, then I'll come to that meeting prepared to offer feedback. Or I'll look at the deck, I'll go through it and realize this is not a good fit for me. Let me save your time. I don't want to waste your time by having a meeting where we sit down and I say to you, this is not in my investment thesis. People believe if I can just sit down with you, you'll understand. And my answer is, I'm not changing my investment thesis for you. And usually what I try to do is offer some sort of value. Call this person, go look at this organization. Have you seen this resource? I always want to be helpful, but as much as the entrepreneur thinks if I can just get in front of you, I'm going to change your mind, it really is wasting his or her time,
Right.
And it's wasting my time, and so that's how I tend to handle it. The stories are great and important and helpful. It also, when you see as many ideas and decks as I do, you usually get about 30 or 40 seconds in, and I'm like, got it. I don't need to hear any more. Now, I don't say that to them.
Right.
Because again, I'm respecting them. They've put a ton of time and effort into this, so I let them do their pitch. But sometimes I'll redirect it, or I'll say, hey, let's jump here or jump there, just because you just see a lot of the same ideas being solved, and you know exactly where you want to go because you've looked at 22 deals just like this one. So do you have this piece figured out or not? Because if you don't have that piece figured out, there's probably not a lot of opportunity here for us. But I also believe that just because I don't want to invest doesn't mean your company isn't going to be successful.
Right.
I used to be in the music business for 15 years, and I would have, when an artist would come in, I would make him or her sing in front of me right then. And I would usually say two things. One, thank you for doing that. You are probably never going to do this for a living. This is not a gift that you have. I don't care what your mom or your dad told you, but I just need to be honest with you. You are not going to do this and be on stage or touring the arenas. Second, if you quit because some guy you just met told you to quit, then you don't really want to do this anyway.
Right.
But really, you shouldn't do this. But the point being, like, you want to give people respect. You want to be honest with them, but you don't need to do that in a hurtful, hateful way.
No.
You can do that in an encouraging way. You can try to push them to people that could be more helpful to them or add more value, and then try to help them see that in the process. And that's what we try to do, is just respectfully work with the entrepreneurs that come our way.
That's great. That's very, very gracious of you.
I can't even imagine walking into a meeting and you say, okay, Bruce,
Sing.
did it, sing. I'd be like, what? I'm the guitar player. I don't sing.
I love it. So let's talk about from the brand perspective. What should a brand look for in an investor? So are they looking for somebody that's got experience and can help them, solve some issues? Or are they just looking for somebody that can write a check?
This is a hard one, because try telling somebody who's been out raising money for 6 months that they have somebody who's willing to write a check, but they have absolutely no value other than the check that they write. Telling them not to take that money, it's difficult, but I think the reality is you are looking for strategic capital.
Yeah.
You are trying to look for people who have been there and done it before. People can prevent you from running into those obstacles that are going to come your way, from the things you don't know, that are willing to spend time and effort. I know that when I write a check to somebody, if I don't feel like I can improve the ability of their business to be successful, I will not write a check, because that doesn't help them and it doesn't help me. Right? I'm trying to add value to the companies that I'm investing in and the companies that I'm participating in. And if I can't do that, it won't happen from my perspective. But on the same sense, you wish in a perfect world you could cherry pick the people that gave you money. And in the beginning, that's hard. As you start to be more successful, you have that opportunity to do it. But I think the way you think about it is, we need entrepreneurs as much as if not more than entrepreneurs need us. Because we need to be able to deploy capital into companies that will return that capital with outsized returns, right? So we've got to make sure that when we're talking to an entrepreneur, that we're able to look at her and say, here's the value we can provide you outside of just a check. Like, we're selling her on why she should hire us or work with us, as opposed to simply just saying, which some, venture capitals do, which is just make you feel like you're a dime a dozen, you're you're not one in a million. This is nothing different or special about what you're doing. It's just not the way we built at 1845. That's not the way we work, and that's not the way I think any organization like that should work.
So when you guys, at what point, Trey, in that first meeting or so, do your lights go on and you go from like receiving info to you're like starting to pitch her? You're like, let me tell you why we can work with you. Here's the things we bring to the table. Is that part of the conversation something you put on the table even if you think it's a dud, or do you wait to make sure there's a few logs on the fire before you, okay, now I'm engaging?
Sure. In our process, I have a friend who says the purpose of a first meeting is to get a second meeting. That's the only purpose. It's not to get funding. The thing that we as entrepreneurs forget is that an average venture capital firm has about 4,000 meetings a year.
Wow.
And I am one of 4,000 meetings that they're having in an afternoon of 6 meetings. Like, as entrepreneurs, we think, all right, we've got a meeting on the 12th. Well, once we talk to them and they give us $1 million, then we're going to do this. We get so optimistic. We don't think about the reality is this is just a first meeting. How am I going to get my second meeting? And the answer to that is story. It's just story.
Yep.
What is different here, right? It's not about how well you can give me the pitch deck that you've already sent me and I've already read. It's not a matter of, how loud or, charismatic you can be. It's about help me understand why there's something there. And so typically in the first meeting, I'm just getting to know the entrepreneur. I'm getting to listen. You'll know a lot from that meeting if somebody says, cool idea. They don't like it.
Yeah.
But if they start hammering you on, well, what about this? And what about this? Have you thought about this? How are you handling this? That means they think there's something there. And so what we try to do in the first meeting is really just kind of understand, and then we'll go back and request information. Usually we'll look at the deck and I'll send questions around a deck if I like it. And then I'll get those answered, and then I'll look through those, then I'll do some market research. We'll kind of just figure out, is there something really there? Then we want to have a meeting with them. After that meeting, we'll be able to come back and say, okay, do we believe them? Because unfortunately, there are some entrepreneurs out there who are not completely honest with what's going on in their business. And so we want to figure out how we feel about him or her. And then after we go through that process, then we're like, okay, now let's go through the real due diligence process.
Right.
I want to see the IP. I want to see that your organization's legally structured. I want to see what the cap table. I mean, all of those detailed things that you have to ask to determine, do they have the ownership of the product or idea they're trying to build?
So Trey, I think you just kind of opened the door on this next topic. What types of information will an emerging brand or an emerging company be expected to share with the potential investor? And I heard you, the first meeting could be a dud, you're not going here. But if they're starting to kind of, light you up a bit and you're getting interested, what do they need to bring to the table? 3 years of business, some growth, proof that they're real?
If they have that, right? Whatever they have, right? Historical data on sales, would be incredible. Yeah. If they have that kind of information. But we put together in tech, but I think this is pretty much normal. They call it a data room, and that data room is basically an online folder that anybody that they give it to can access, and it's got their pitch deck, and it's got their legal orientation, and it's got their cap table, and it's got their financial projections, and it's got the bios of all of their main team. It's got information about IP if they have patents or patent pending, they put that type of stuff in there too. Any sort of work they've done around design of packaging or structure, or what manufacturing organizations that they're talking to, any contracts that they have that are important or material to the business, all need to go in there and structured. And then you put that in there and people can look for whatever they want. But I'd say just bare minimum, you got to have a cap table, you got to have financial projections and a pitch deck. that is even if you have you're at the very early stages. If you've built a company, then you should have some of that information.
Do investors look for things like personal bankruptcies or anything?
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of times they'll do a background check at point, which kind of reveals those elements. Because we're dealing typically with organizations, the personal bankruptcy of the person is only relevant to their character. Unfortunately,
It matters.
it does, and personal bankruptcy could be something that wasn't necessarily your fault, or not because of some nefarious business dealings that you have. But it's important to know that I would anything that I think could come up later, like politics, anything that I think could come up later, I'm going to volunteer to the investor to see if he or she wants to learn more about it. Just that very nature of being forthcoming is really valuable. But some investors go a lot deeper than others, but it'll be specific as the investor wants to go. And I've gotten really, really specific in some areas, and in some cases, they don't really have much. And so, do I believe in the entrepreneur? Do I believe in the idea? Do I think I can add value? Is it worth a shot? And in an early stage, you've got to take that approach more than at a Series B or whatnot, when they actually have sales and revenue and distribution and data on engagement of the product at the retail location, information they have about D2C development as much as they can. If they're selling through Amazon, there's limits to what they'll let you know about the products and services that you're selling and delivering. But anything that you have that can showcase traction,
Proof of concept, customer, what do you know about your customers? How do you interact with them?
Anything like that is going to be important. And I'd put it there even if the investor didn't ask for it, because typically the investor is going to have somebody on their team looking through this and going over it. And especially in the age of AI, we're going to see it's just easier to do that kind of market research and plug all those documents in and say, summarize these documents for me, find these sorts of things, what doesn't stand there. And so it makes it easier on the investment side and more important on the entrepreneur side, that you're just being really clear about the information you have and you're passing along.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Well, good. So I'm a brand founder, and I think I'm ready to go raise money. Two things. One is, where do I find information on investors, especially in CPG specifically? And then once that process starts, how long does it take from the time you contact that investor to you finally get somebody to write you a check? How long does that take? But let's first talk about, how do I find investors?
So, with LLMs and AI, it's a lot easier to pull that now. But traditional places are like PitchBook and Crunchbase, and but I would Google, I would ChatGPT, I would do whatever it is, and I would just say, I'm looking for CPG investors that invest in this type of company with this type of product or service that's B2C or direct to consumer or retail or whatever the case may be. Tons will come up. And then what you got to do is you really have got to look at those individual investors that pop up and not just assume they're all perfect for you, because again, you don't want to be known as wasting somebody's time, and they won't take a meeting that doesn't make sense. And so after you amass your list of, I would say 150 to 200 thought out, researched investors, then I would start to say, okay, now who do I know that knows any of these investors? And then I would write what I would call forwardable email. I reach out to you, Tracy, and I say, Tracy, I see venture capitalists ABC. Would you be willing to make an introduction? I've written a forwardable email to you that's really simple, and it says, thanks, Tracy, for passing this along to venture capital ABC. As a result of their investment here, here, and here, or because of this reason, we thought our company would be a good fit for their investment thesis.
That's good.
You can easily forward that along. It's simple. You'll do it. You have the relationship with me, so you're happy to help. You don't really have to do a lot for it or really step out on your own and go to bat for them, other than you're vouching with a little bit of an introduction. That's super important, super valuable. The highest potential opportunity for you to get in with an investor, angel or institutional is going to be going through people that you know.
Yeah, referral.
And that's where I would start. I would say, I always tell people in terms of how quickly do you get the money, if I said to you today, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing, I'm going to write you a $100,000 check, 60 days.
Okay.
That's what I think about. Now it happens faster, but I'm raising money right now. Chasing money down from people who say yes is super difficult. And so you just got to and again, it's not bad. You just have to allot that amount of time for you. So if I was going to go out and raise money, well, I am raising money right now, but if I was going to do that, I would give myself 9 months hoping it took 6.
Okay.
And that means that 85% of my time is spent on raising money. And that means I'm going to talk to 150 to 200 investors, not random investors in the specific area where I am trying to go.
And they're interested in.
That they would be interested in me.
Yeah, good fit.
That's 150 investors who take my call and have a phone conversation with me.
Right.
Because I'm relevant.
And we just talked to someone who said 76 meetings over 6 months to get 1 yes.
That sounds about right.
So the people that are delusional, I guess there is the silver bullet where it happens, like you said, love it, 60 days later, cash in hand. And then there's others that just thrash and it takes forever. And maybe the checklist you gave, idea's not great. There's a lot of people here. You've had 96 startups. What are you doing? Do you have any focus? So there's a million reasons to say no. And then also the other one we've heard before is just timing. Sometimes they might have just been flush because of investment just monetized, or they're getting late in a fund and they've got to deploy some capital. So that was really good. The warm intros, targeting firms that already do kind of what you do, so they're knowledgeable. So that would be value added money right from the start, which is really good.
And then remember that mid-November to January 15th is completely dead for institutional. And then June 5th through August 31st is dead for institutional capital. So if you're in those windows...
Yeah, sounds like Europe.
Yeah.
If you're in those, well, it's just rich people, right? If you're in those windows, then what I tell people is go to angels. Go for individuals at that point, because they'll call if they're willing to take calls during that time. They're not.
Before we move on, what's your view on angel groups?
Perfect. So I am the chair of one angel group and I'm the founder of another angel group. What I tell people about angel groups is very, very important in my opinion, because most angel groups are not a good use of your time. And it is not because those angel groups aren't valuable. It's because those angel groups don't invest in your type of company. And so you need to look at the angel groups that you're going after, and you need to look at what deals they've done. What angels, if you can find anything about the angels that are part of that group, that will tell you the types of deals that they're doing. So if you are launching a CPG company and you are going to a angel group of doctors,
You're wasting your time.
It may or may not work. Now, CPG is fun, and especially in Dallas-Fort Worth, it's sexy. Everybody wants to be able to open their cabinet and say, look at the water I invested in, look at the tequila I own. Like, there would be doctors and stuff that would be interested in that. But I think that's an important piece. And I think a lot of angel groups are run really inefficiently. But even if they're run efficiently, like the ones I'm blessed to be a part of, it takes time, because the people that are making these investments are busy people. Most of them have jobs. They're building their own companies. And so the process of getting in, getting approved, getting to pitch, getting to have due diligence done, it's not organized like you'd find inside of a traditional institutional investor. So I'm a big fan of angels, especially in the beginning. Most people will tell you if you're trying to raise a pre-seed round of funding, half of it needs to be from angels. Or friends, family, or fools, before an institutional will ever give it credibility, because they view the funding as a part of the traction.
Right.
But I also think, most of the groups out there that are doing pre-seed investing are really seed investors trying to get early looks at what's coming down the pipe. There are some great groups out there that actually do pre-seed, but I think the reality of it is you got to find angels in the beginning to get you going. And that's super helpful because they have the freedom and the ability as accredited investors to write checks for whatever they want. But then, the reality too is often your most involved investors are the people who write the smallest checks. And so you've got to think about that as well. If you're meeting with an angel or an investor that just seems way too involved and way too eager and calling you way too much.
We're going to get there in a minute.
Yeah, that's probably not a great relationship to have.
So two quick things here, Trey, before we press on. Can you just give a quick definition of what pre-seed is so that people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's hard because pre-seed means one thing in Silicon Valley and means a different thing in Texas. So the way I think about it is, as we talk about those different stages, the first would be friends and family. And we kind of talked about that 0 to 50, maybe 100. Then the angel, which is, 250 to 500 or $1 million. Pre-seed would probably be up to $1 million. And I'm specifically thinking about tech and most of the country, Silicon Valley, a pre-seed could be much bigger. Seed stage. So pre-seed is like before you have a product done, before you have a lot of customers. The seed stage is really there to help start to go get customers, begin to show proof of concept. People are purchasing the product. It's working. It's growing. I've got some revenue. I may not be profitable, but it's starting to grow to a point where I have real proof of concept that this business works. And then Series A is, all right, it works. We're going to put some money into it, and it's going to start to grow. Not are we still trying to figure out if there's a business there, but rather we have a business, we have a model, we know what the lifetime value of our customers. We know what the acquisition cost of our customer is. Now it's just putting money down. And if those numbers are correct, it's about how many customers do you want to have?
Right.
And you put that money in. And then as you get to Series B and Series C, then it's about further growth, expansion into different markets, different strategies. You may be doing direct to consumer and Amazon now, but you want to go into retail. And so you're looking at those opportunities as well. So that's how I define it. If you're in Silicon Valley, somebody may say, I have a $50 million seed round, and that's just not typical for this part of the country.
Right.
But as I think about it, that's how I look at it in defining
really
those areas.
So two points of clarification on angels. For one, I'd like to know for sure, and as well as the audience, angels, group of people. Brand goes into pitch. Is each of the 20 people at the table making their own decision, or is the angel one fund and I don't know what they do. Do they vote and then they're all in together, or Mr. Johnson's going to, Mrs. Smith will, but the other 12 won't? How does it work?
So typically angel groups are individual accredited investors who make their own decisions. Sometimes they have a sidecar fund or a fund they put together that invests alongside of deals, but by the very nature, they are making their own decisions.
But it's a group for simplicity's sake.
It's a group for simplicity's
sake. And pitches to 20 people at once.
They're accredited investors. It's a great way to find access to deals if people want to do it. It's a great way for accredited investors to learn how to invest and how to think about investing in early stage. So it's a great solution. And one area that we haven't talked at all about in terms of funding is crowdfunding. And for CPG and consumer-based products, sometimes that's a really interesting, unique avenue to do it. I wouldn't necessarily do it for all companies, but when I can touch, taste, feel, smell your product, crowdfunding can be an interesting opportunity. And there's lots of different crowdfunding platforms that exist, and a bunch of work that happened that I got to work on around 2017 with the Jobs Act and some of the crowdfunding, legislation and policy that was created out of the SEC. So that could be for CPG entrepreneurs an interesting way to look at things and an avenue that might be helpful. But what I would say that, or even like an SPV where you have a special purpose vehicle where, let's say maybe you're trying to raise money and you say our minimum check that we'll take is $50,000. And you may have 5 people that say, well, I can't put in $50,000, but I'll put in 10. And so you create this special purpose vehicle that to the company is really one investor, but the investor is made up of a bunch of investors over here. You as the company don't have to worry about how that's made up. You just worry about that one investor. But that's a great and new way that we're seeing accredited investors get involved because it's an important process. What I tell accredited investors in general, especially angels or individuals, is you need to look. First of all, I'm a huge advocate for allocating some amount of your net worth to early stage. I think it's a great way to do it. I also tell people you need to figure out what that allocation is going to be, and I would argue shouldn't be more than 2 to 3% of your total net worth. And you need to take that dollar amount and spread it over 20 to 30 companies. Because if you're investing it in less than that, you're probably not going to make any money. But if you spread it over 20 to 30 companies, the statistical return from an IRR perspective is about 28%. So it's way better than market returns if you do it like that. But that's part of the education process that you have to tell people they've got to learn about. It also prevents you from being super crazy and saying, I'm just super emotionally excited about this tequila, and so I'm going to put $150,000 and my total allocation was $200,000, right? You can do that, but you better be right.
Yeah.
And that, it's hard at an early stage.
Sure.
To have something like that be right all the time. You've got to believe that 3 to 4 of your 20 something is going to make back all the money that you invested in everything.
Yeah, the venture equation that I've always been told is out of your 10 investments, 6 are going to zero, 1 breaks even, 1 makes a little money, and all your returns in the 1.
Yeah.
Bruce, do you know which is the 1?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
If you did.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
But then you go to jail for insider trading. So Trey, you are hitting on this, and I think this is really important. Once a brand takes on an investor, especially if they haven't done this before, what kind of data will they be expected to put forward? What frequency of meetings will they be expected? Because you gave one doomsday scenario. My little investors calls me 6 times a day to ask me how it's going. Mm-hmm. How does that work?
So it depends on the investor and what they expect, and it depends on the stage. Once you get to institutional level investors, Series A, they're going to want a board seat. They're putting more money in. They're going to have certain terms that they expect to get, warrants and agreements and paybacks and preferred liquidation opportunities and things like that. But I would tell an entrepreneur in the beginning, as you were going through the process of raising money, once a quarter is good for updates.
Right.
Once a month is good for as you're really trying to get started. Some even do once a week. The problem with that is not that it's not valuable, it's just hard to be consistent on that. So I would say at least in the beginning stages, at least once a month. Once you've raised the round, you're starting to go, we do once a quarter. And there's pretty traditional investor updates that you send out, including what's going well, any key hires, what asks we may have, where we are on the investment structure, any sorts of special returns or wins that we have. And it's important because they tell you as an entrepreneur, every person you meet with, you need to ask, can I put you on my investor list? Mm-hmm. Because I respect entrepreneurs, anybody that I've agreed to be on their investor list, I read their updates. And it needs to be quick and clear and straightforward, mm-hmm. But you never know. The one time I'm looking at that and I see something that makes me go, oh my gosh, I wasn't interested before, but now I'm interested, I'm going to call them. And it's worth it because you're sending one update to hopefully 300 people, right? So keeping them updated is important. And a lot of times I'll send a message just so they know, hey, somebody's reading this.
Yeah,
which is encouraging him or her that this is, you're not wasting your time completely. But also, what a great opportunity to show wins and have somebody celebrate those inflection points. Because as an early stage, those inflection points, those small wins, you really have to grab hold of and appreciate, because oftentimes more bad happens than good, which is okay. You don't need more good to happen than bad. You just need, it's like playing golf. You just need one hole where you got a par or you got a birdie or you hit a good drive on 12 and you're like, well, I'm going back next weekend. That's what we need, is those inflection points as entrepreneurs to feel strong and good about what we're doing, and then occasionally having somebody respond and say, wow, congratulations, your first client. Congratulations, you made $1 million in revenue, or you closed a deal with 3 more Tom Thumbs or 7-Elevens. Things like that are important. So once a month, when you're growing, once a quarter, once you're kind of in between the fundraising process.
Yeah, the Friday morning weekly management discussion and analysis calls are brutal. Mm-hmm. Weekly's brutal. Tracy?
Yep. So talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the missteps or miscalculations you've seen brands make in the investment process.
Well, I think not respecting the process in terms of what it takes to raise money. And when I say 85% of your time has to be spent on raising money, it's 85% of your time, which means you're only spending 15% of time on your business.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's super difficult and that's hard. I think other mistakes they make are overstating relationships, overstating, I've had people that said we're close to a deal with Dell. Come to find out they sent Dell a message to their business development page with no response other than like.
Wait, that's not good?
So I think that's part of it. I think again, not constantly surrounding yourself with people that are better and stronger than faster. I tell people all the time, if you're the best at your company in more than one thing, you've hired poorly. But if you're the best in your company at nothing, you've hired brilliantly. So why, if it's your company, are you not going to find the brightest, smartest, greatest people you can imagine? And the thing I love about entrepreneurs is they swing big. They're like, if I'm going to build a new orange soda, I'm going to go find the person who built the last big orange soda and ask him or her to come be on my team. And it's entrepreneurs, they have such a can-do spirit that they're willing to try and ask and do things that other people aren't willing to do. And even though 99% of the time it doesn't work, you just need it to work one time. And so go find the best team of people that you can find. Convince them with your story why this is different, this is special. They can be a part of something that's really, really spectacular. I think that's important. I think other mistakes that they make are just the consistency of communication and the consistency of doing things that they say they're going to do, following up with investors in a timely manner, like within 24 hours, timely manner, getting investors everything that they need, learning from those calls, right? One of the things that's super hard about investors is a lot of times from investors, the answer will be, well, you don't have enough traction. And we'll say, okay, great. What's that mean? And maybe they say more revenue. Okay, well, how much revenue? They don't really tell you.
Right.
But think about that call, and I would push hard. I would say, give me something. I'm not asking you to commit to investing, but is it, if I have $500,000 in revenue, am I a fit for you to consider? Is it 7 customers? Is it 3 LOIs? What is it that's important? Write that down, because that investor who says no today, and I've heard this happen lots and lots of times, comes back later to become an investor once you get to a point where you are in their investment thesis. And so it's running a process effectively and tracking the steps in the investment, portfolio, and making sure that you're just being consistent and putting into that what you're putting into building the product that you're so passionate and excited about. And then the last one is, I would say, and this happens all the time to me, because I have about 50 investments from my last investment job, and they all the time will say, hey, I want an introduction to this investor. And I'll say, great, send me the forwardable email on why they're a good fit. I'll see the forwardable email. I'll go do a little bit of research on the investor, and I'll realize you're a CPG brand and they only do healthcare or health tech. And it makes me really frustrated, because I'm spending my time leveraging my relationships to try to help you. And guess what happens when too many times I go to an investor with an unrealistic investment opportunity? They quit taking my calls, which affects you and everybody else that I know that wants to get introduced to
affects your
investor.
credibility.
That's my credibility, is part of what helps them. And so I think really make sure that the companies you're going after are a good fit for you. I know it feels great to get a meeting and have a call, but if you're going to an investor that's not a good fit, it is
wasting time.
It's a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah.
Well, it's also amazing all across probably all businesses, but Tracy and I do emerging brands. Follow-up is just the Achilles heel, whether it's trying to get a meeting, getting your first distribution, or getting your website up and running, or talking to people like you. and you're either sloppy, late, or inaccurate. It's like, I mean, how many more alarm bells can possibly go off? I'll get it to you Tuesday. I guess I should have specified Tuesday of this year.
Right.
And like which month. So follow up, folks. We talk about it almost every episode. All right, Trey, we're landing the plane here. We're almost done. So thank you so much. Who's had the greatest influence or impact on your career, and what did that person do that stuck with you over the years? You can name the name if you want. If not, that's your business. But what did they do when you're like, damn?
Yeah, so my story is a little different because it happened when I was 12. Most of my career, everything I built by myself. I built by jumping into the deep end and figuring it out. I didn't have a lot of mentors. I didn't have a lot of people that knew what I was doing any more than I did. But when I was 12 years old, I was hired by a friend to mow her dad's lawn. And I mowed that lawn, and I went inside and was sitting in a room, and he and his wife were in the other room, and he said, I really love Trey. He's a great kid. He just doesn't know how to work hard. He did a really bad job on our lawn. Changed my life forever. There's nobody that I have ever met that works harder than me since that day. And I've told him, he knows this. He doesn't remember saying it. He didn't mean it in a way that would affect me, but it made me realize that what was going to make me different was how hard I worked, how hard I prepared, not how good I was in the situation. And I took that through. I ended up playing football in college. Clearly do not look like a college football player, but was able to do it because of the work that I put in, the effort I did. So now I know, having built 30 plus companies, is that I know what it takes to build a company. Doesn't mean that they all work by any means. But I know that when I build a company, if it does not work, it is not because I didn't do everything I possibly could. It's not because I didn't take every possible instance and opportunity to be the best. And so, although he wasn't a part of my career, and I've had great people along my career that have added value in different ways, but that's what really had the biggest effect on my career, I think.
Wow, what a great story. I love that.
12-year-old wake-up call. Better to have it too early than too late, right?
That's very true.
Very true. So, last and final question. We love this question. So tell us your favorite sports team, band, or brand, and why you love them.
Okay. So I was in the music industry for 15 to 20 years, so I can't pick a favorite band because it's like picking a favorite child.
Right.
I would say my favorite sports team is my son and I love the University of Alabama football team. And we do because I went and played football at a small school in Alabama. And when you move to Alabama or you live in Alabama, before you sign your lease, they say, what team do you pick? And I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, we have Auburn, we have Alabama. You have to pick one of the two football teams and swear allegiance to your death. And my answer was, I thought Auburn was in Georgia, so I'll pick Alabama. And that has been a very great choice for me over the years as they've won 12 national championships. And my son loves them, and it's fun to do. But I like a lot of sports and a lot of sports teams, but that's probably my favorite. Why? Roll Tide, yes.
I love it.
Well, Nick Saban, not known for being cuddly, but very organized and works hard.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing. What did Chichi Rodriguez say? The more he practiced golf, the luckier he got.
That's true.
That was good. All right. So Trey, thank you so much for your time today. If people out there would like to reach out, maybe ask you a question, but they'd have to be organized and not waste your time, or how to learn more about your company, what's the best way to get in touch?
So we have a website. It's 1845studio.com. We also are on LinkedIn. I myself I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Trey Bowles. And then I would ask that if you reach out, you don't just try to become, a follower or a friend or connection, but rather explain to me why you're reaching out. Because if I don't know somebody, I usually don't accept them. But if you reach out and say, this is why I'm reaching out, this is why I'm contacting you, here's some information, here's my one pager, here's whatever the case may be, then it's easier to make sure that I get back and I understand why it's a good fit.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All right, Tracy.
The big finish,
Big
absolutely.
finish.
Audience, thank you so much for joining us today. Trey, you are awesome. This has been I know our audience is going to love this episode. So continue to follow us on Spotify as well as Apple or wherever you listen to a podcast. Also, we're available on LinkedIn, and we post every Tuesday. So look for this episode. And also, we have a website, www.road2retail.com, where we share all of our episodes all in one place. So we thank you, audience, for joining us again today. And thank you again, Trey. Great to be here.
Good luck out there, folks.